So now let's see how to insert this figure as illustrated here onto chapter 1 intro.tex file. But before we do so, it is necessary to look at some enrollment and its associated commands that will help us in getting this look in Latex. So let me show that the enrollment. So here we'll be using this figure enrollment, which has this begin figure and end figure, and along with this enrollment, one could also specify the placement of the figure, which has been defined through this placement specifier within this square bracket. So probably I will restrict its explanation to a very few specifiers here. I will not talk too much. One could Google a lot and get a lot of information about it. But as of now, I'll just give a brief overview of it. So the first column basically has the specifier switch. Okay. So here, if at all, if you're using this h within this square brackets, then it specifies that the figure has to be inserted exactly in the location where you want it to be. Okay. So whereas if you specify t within this square brackets, then your figure will be placed at the top of the page, and b for the bottom. And when you specify the letter p, then that places your figure on an extra page. Okay. So next, let me talk about the command which is used to bring the image inside the figure enrollment. So the command that we will use in order to get the image into this figure enrollment is this include graphics command, and there are basically two scaling methods that are specified within this square brackets. So one is the scale method, the other one is the width method, or basically they both are scaling. And if you specify scale, then the scale has to be followed with a number value. And say for example, you have a figure of a particular size, and if you specify it as 1, the same size would be copied onto your Latex document. So this is basically the scale method is basically an absolute value based method, which means that if the size of the image is quite larger than the width of your document, then obviously when you specify a scale value of 1, then the image would be extended beyond the page width. So one has to tweak around this number value, and it's a kind of quite tedious method, which I will not recommend you to follow the same. And one could even go for upscaling in case if the image size that you are dealing is quite smaller. You can go with the value of numbers beyond 1, like 2 or 1.5, whatever the number that you want to scale up, you can specify here. But the most preferred way is this width method, where this method works based on the relative values. So what I really mean is that we have to associate this width command with some sort of relative command, which is basically the text width. So this text width in general returns us the page width of the document that we are using, and the number value of it would then automatically multiplies. Say for example, if I use this number value as 1/text width, then the image would be stretched out, or whatever it is being fixed to the exact width of your page width. Whereas if you want to have a width which is half the page size width, then you can just have a number of 0.5/text width, then that will bring the image which is exactly half the width of your page width. Next I need to talk about this path. So the paths are basically specified within the curly braces, and I just want to demonstrate this by how we are going to get this image from a particular location. So right now I'll just show what is the image name, and later I will just demonstrate how will we bring this image into the document. But as of now, I'm just going to show only the path and the file name of the image. So basically this image is being saved under this chapter 1 directory and inside this figures. Okay, so I have this particular figure which you could see here, and the name of this figure is basically universe. and my main.txt file is sitting here. Okay, and your chapter 1 is under this chapter 1 directory. Okay, so we have to remember those locations in order to bring those images onto our document. Okay, so let me bring back all these discussions later, but as of now we'll just continue with those commands that we are looking at it. So the next one is centering. So whenever we want to center the image, we'll be using this centering command. Okay, and to add the caption to the image that we are talking, we'll be using this command caption, and whatever the title that you want to specify could be specified within this curly braces. So let me talk about referencing the figure inside the chapter. Now, to reference these figures, one has to have two commands. One is the label, the other one is the reference command. So the label is generally used to create a reference name for figures, tables, or equations, and one would use the reference command to call those reference names that was created with this label command within the document. Probably it might confuse you a lot. Let me demonstrate it, but I just want to complete few more commands before we actually do this process. So let me continue with it. So as I stated before, we have only one command to create the reference names, okay, for either for figures or tables or equations. So one has to use a smart way of prefixing those reference names while creating the reference names. So I basically prefer to have the prefix as fig : whenever I try to create a reference name for the figures, and similarly to create a reference name for a table, the prefix of the reference name would start with tab : followed by the name that you want to give. So basically this would be the prefix, and for equations it would be EQ : and whatever the name that you want to follow, it can be followed after this prefix. Let us try to mimic that. We want to create a reference name for the figure universe. So the way that this command label is being added into the figure environment is by adding this label command within this caption. Okay, so it's not mandatory that you need to place this label command within this caption. You can also place it outside just by adding /label figure universe. So, but generally this is the preferred method, such that you can always have a look around the caption and the label that you're prefixing it. Yeah. So in this case, as I said before, since I'm trying to create a reference name for the figure, I prefix the reference name with fig : followed by a specific name to point out that particular figure, right? So this is the reference name and that I've created using the label command. The next one is to bring this reference name or reference this name into the document. So what I mean is that the usage of the reference command. Say for example, the command syntax is basically like this. I have this reference command with the reference name that I've created with the label. Yeah. So in a way, when I try to use the same reference name that I have created using the label command, I use the prefix fig followed by the name of the reference. Okay. So this will actually bring out only the numbers, which is 1.1. So in general, we are not sure about what this number is, right? Because whenever we reference this as a kind of number, we cannot really see what this number is actually about. So in order to have some sort of meaning to this number, we generally have to add a label to this reference commands. So in the case of a figure, the label that is prescribed would be figure. So which means that for the example, before this reference command, I have to add a label, which is figure, and then there is a space followed by this reference command. So now that the output of this would look something like figure space 1.1 would be the output of this particular labeling and usage of this reference command. So probably I will show you all of these things with an example. But for a table, the prescribed label would be just label and then the space followed by the reference command with a reference name that is created by the label. Okay. Yeah. So for the equation again, we'll be using this kind of notation. Okay. Yeah. So all of these things I can show with an example. So that's all I have to talk with respect to the figure environment and its associated commands. So let us get into action. Let me just get back to the chapter 1, and I just want to add the figure between this paragraph 2 and 3 under this introduction, and this is how it looks in my Word document. So let me try to do the same. So get back to this, and then I first begin with the figure environment. So just tab it, so that will automatically bring out this begin figure and end figure. And after this, as I said, I just want to place my figure exactly between these paragraphs. I don't want to get this figure to any other location, so I'll just add the placement specifier as H here, and then later I want to center my figure, so I'll just write centering, and then followed by this I have to bring my graphics inside this document, so which I do it just by having this include graphics command, and with the scale let us go with the number of 1. So let me begin with the absolute scaling way and just tab it to jump to the next dot, and the path at which this particular figure is located is basically figures and then the name of the file, which is universe. Okay, and in this case I'm not completely specifying the extension here. By default it will recognize the extension. Yeah, so after this I have to give the caption, but before that we'll just make a quick run and see whether the scale of 1 value is fine or not. So sorry for the mistake that I have created. I should have specified just the figure, or I have to specify the dot with slash. So let me try it again. Yeah. So now that has brought my figure exactly in the location where I want it. Okay. So if I change this placement specified to T, then this figure would then jump to the top. If I use B, it will go down and all those stuff. Okay. Yeah. So because my chapter 1 -intro.txt file is available under chapter 1, and with respect to that particular file, the figure is located inside this figures directory with the name of universe, and that's the reason why I have to specify the complete path right from the directory from which this particular figure is being called from. Okay. Yeah. So obvious this figure is quite fine, but let me talk about the width as well. Let me try to replace this scale with width, and then I have to specify the text width. Yeah. So let us try to do the same, and probably this time, since the width starts from here to here, probably the figure will be extended throughout this entire page width. Let me show you that. Yeah. So as you could able to see that the figure is being completely stretched out. Okay. So in this case, I could make it as 0.5, so such that it scales down. Yeah. So which is quite small. Okay. So we have two techniques, and I have demonstrated two of them, and it depends on your complete usage, like whatever method that works fine for you, you can use it. And I'll just continue with the discussion of creating a caption here. So I just want to create the caption, and let me copy the caption that I've used here, which is sample universe, and I just paste here. So this sample universe is just the name that will appear at the bottom of this particular figure. So as you could able to see that the caption has added this entire set of figure 1.1 colon sample universe. That is the caption that I've used here. Yeah, so now in order to reference this entire image, we need a reference name. So as I said, we have to create the reference name with the command label. So I do so just by placing the label command within this caption command. And because I'm referencing a figure, I'll just create the reference name with a prefix of fig colon, and since I want to remember the name, I'll just give some meaningful name as universe, and this is the reference name that I've created. And as you could able to see already that there is a figure with 1.1 which I have already referenced, but this is a reference that I have entered manually, but I just want the Latex to number for me. I don't want to number for each and every figure by looking at the number at the bottom, right? So we do it automatically just by removing those numbers, and also ensure that you have some space after this figure, and then try to write this reference command. And as you could able to see that when I type in this reference command, you could see a lot of references that I've created. And in this, since I'm just want to reference a figure, I could write this colon fig. So the moment I type in this first prefix, it completely removes all of the references that I have created. Okay, so you will appreciate this when you have a lot of figures and equations, and when they share the same common name, you would appreciate this technique. But as of now, I'll just show this how to use it. Yeah, so reference. Yeah, so as I said, this reference command will return as only the number, which is 1.1 over here. Yeah, so as you could able to see that the number has not appeared when you compile for the first time, so you have to run for the second time in order to get the number. So this always happens, so don't get panic when you have this symbol. And if you are doing for the second time and if you are still not getting this number, then there is some problem with the referencing name. Okay, yeah, so as you could able to see that the number is automatically appeared here, and wherever you want, you just click on this number, it will get you back to this figure. Okay, so the numbering can be done automatically and being referenced inside the document through this reference command, and the reference name is created with this label command. Hope that it is clear. So the next is I will show how to create a simple table and insert inside the document. And again, for tables, there exists some set of enrollment and placement specifier, and a lot of commands are involved in it. So let us get back to the theory, and then later we'll come back here and then try to demonstrate. Yeah. So now onto the table. So we basically have a table enrollment with begin table and end table, which is the enrollment. And along with this, we have the placement specifier, which is the same placement specifier we spoke earlier for the figure. So there is nothing to talk about this placement specifier again here. And again, we want this table to be centered, and later the caption of this table is always placed at the top of the table. So that's the reason why you add this caption immediately after this centering command. And now that I have to bring one more enrollment, which is known as tabular enrollment. Let me talk about this tabular enrollment. This tabular enrollment will help us to define the rows and columns in the table, and also define the content of the cells. So the syntax is given towards the left, where you have this begin tabular, and followed by this there is an alignment specifier. So this alignment specifier generally have three options. One is L, so where the content of your cells will be placed left aligned, C for center aligned, and R for right alignment. Okay, and apart from this, I have shown some sort of example along with some basic definitions for some set of commands that are being used within this tabular enrollment. So here in this case, I've used this letter C twice, which means that the table will have two columns and both these columns are center aligned. Okay, and followed by this, there is a command known as top rule, which will help us to draw a thick line. And later there is specifier, which means that I'm just trying to define the content of a single cell. And there is an ampersand symbol. This ampersand symbol is something which helps us to separate one cell from the other cell. And since we have only two columns, I have only two cells in a particular row. So the first cell is being filled with some name like specifier, and the second cell is filled with a name like description, and these two cells have to be separated by this delimiter, which is an ampersand symbol. And in order to move to the next row, we have to use this double slash, which is nothing but the line breaking command. And after this, we have used this mid rule twice in order to draw a very thin line. And I have defined some set of elements inside these cells. Okay, so probably when you look at this particular table, you might feel a little bit awkward just because everything seems to be looking like some sort of junk of commands being entered, and then you might lose your way out. But once you get practice to it, it becomes much easier. But for the people who are finding bit difficult and people have very less number of tables, then you can create this table in online. Okay, so the link of which I will put it in the description, so that you can just go there where you have a visual representation. You enter the values and the number of columns that you wanted, and everything will be done. And you can generate the Latex command set automatically from this website, and you copy that between this table environment. Okay, so let us try to see the result of it. So this is the complete things. So the first one is my table environment, which will help us to hold the table and put the table in a particular place with the placement specifier. Okay, and later I have used the center alignment, centering the entire table, and then the caption. And again, the caption has the title as align specifier. And also I want to reference this table, so I have to create a reference name. So as I said before, for tables, we will be using this tab colon as the prefix, followed by some name that is unique to this particular table. And you can also have a space between them, between the reference names. So this is how I have. And immediately after this, we have this tabular environment with this following thing. And when you compile this entire set of commands, the output of which is shown towards the right. As you could able to see, since I have used this center alignment twice, we have two columns, and those two columns elements are being center aligned. Okay, and one is the specifier and the description. And whenever we use this top rule, it creates a thick line at the top of the table. And since I've used this mid rule, it has created a very thin line. And I think there is also one more command, which is bottom rule. Okay, so you can use bottom rule in order to redraw this thin line with a thick line. Okay, yeah. So this is how generally the table can be included onto your LaTeX document. So hope that you are clear with these commands that I've spoken about. And so before I end this video, I would encourage you to Google about these topics to further customize the look and the feel of the figures and the tables. The customization in turn demands you to include further packages into the main.txt file. So in case if you want to have further customization, you can just get back to this main.txt file, and you could see that there is a package .txt file which is available under the auxiliary files directory. So again, in order to go to this particular file, you can just left click on this left panel, and here, as you could see, that all the packages that we are using inside this default project template is listed here, and whatever extra packages that you want, you can actually add them here. Yeah, so with that said, In the next video, we will see how to write equations and its abbreviations. So see you next time. Thank you.